The unexpected call. The morning started like any other Saturday in Willow Creek Estates, quiet, clean, and annoyingly perfect. The lawns were trimmed with military precision, the driveways spotless, and the HOA's latest bulletin was tucked neatly under everyone's doormat. I had just poured my first cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. The screen flashed a number I didn't recognize, but it had the local area code. Hello? I answered, half expecting a telemarketer. Good morning, Mr. Daniels. This is Amanda from First Pine Bank. We're following up regarding your community improvement loan. My what? I asked, confused. The loan you co-signed with Willow Creek HOA last quarter for the new gate system. The first payment bounced yesterday, and since your name is listed as a guarantor, we wanted to confirm if your information has changed. For a moment, my brain went blank. There must be some mistake. I never signed any loan documents. Amanda hesitated. Sir, we have your signature and identification attached to the file. Would you like me to email you a copy? Yes, please do. I hung up, my heart thudding in my chest. I stared out the window. Across the street, HOA President Karen Peterson was watering her roses in her usual floral dress, smiling like she owned the entire neighborhood. By the time the email arrived, my hands were shaking. I opened the attachment, and there it was. My name, my address, my supposed signature scrawled at the bottom of a $120,000 community loan agreement. Only it wasn't my handwriting. It was close, frighteningly close, but not mine. Someone had practiced. I immediately grabbed my phone again. Hi, this is Mr. Daniels. I just reviewed the document. That's not my signature. I didn't authorize this. Amanda's tone shifted. Sir, in that case, you'll need to come to our branch to file a fraud report. Bring your identification. We'll flag the account. I'll be there today. I hung up and stared at the paper printout from my phone. My stomach twisted. This wasn't some clerical error. Someone had deliberately used my name, and in this community only one person had access to all homeowners' records and ID copies. Karen. By noon, I was at the bank. Amanda, a young woman with tired eyes, led me into her office. Mr. Daniels, we've had a few of these community loans lately. Usually they're approved by the HOA board, but your signature looks off, I nodded. Off is one word for it. That's forgery? She clicked through her computer. It lists the HOA president as the primary contact, Karen Peterson. The rest of the board also signed, except for one vacancy. She submitted the paperwork in person. In person? I asked. Yes, she said you couldn't make it, but gave her written permission to sign on your behalf. She provided a letter, too. Can I see it? Amanda printed the document. It was short. A simple note stating, I, Robert Daniels, authorize HOA President Karen Peterson to sign loan-related documents for community improvements on my behalf. And, of course, it bore another forged version of my signature. Unbelievable, I muttered. Amanda sighed. You'll need to file a police report, and we'll suspend payment collection until it's resolved. This could take weeks. When I returned home, Karen was still outside, chatting with our neighbor Lisa about the upcoming HOA bake sale. Her voice carried that same sugary tone that always made my skin crawl. I walked straight up to her. Karen, we need to talk, she smiled sweetly. Robert, perfect timing. We were just discussing new security upgrades. Isn't it exciting? Not as exciting as finding out my name was forged on a $120,000 loan, I said coldly. Her smile froze. For half a second, her eyes flickered, panic, then control. Oh, that! It's just a misunderstanding. You approved the project months ago, remember? You even signed the petition. I signed a petition to discuss the idea, not to finance it. Karen laughed lightly, too rehearsed. Robert, you must be mistaken. Everything was above board. The board approved it unanimously. I wasn't even present for that meeting. Of course you were, she said smoothly. Check the minutes. It's all recorded. Something in her tone made my stomach twist again. She turned to Lisa, smiling. Some people just forget things when life gets busy, don't they? Lisa chuckled awkwardly and excused herself. Karen leaned closer, lowering her voice. You don't want to stir up drama, Robert. It won't look good for anyone. The loan benefits everyone. Don't make this personal. It became personal the moment you forged my name, I said quietly. I'm filing a report. Her smile faltered. Careful. The HOA has rules about slander. I walked away without answering. That night I sat at my desk with every HOA document I'd kept, newsletters, meeting notes, payment records. Nothing mentioned a loan. No notices. No member vote. Nothing. I opened my laptop and began writing everything down, dates, names, conversations. I knew how Karen worked, charm on the outside, control on the inside, but this time, she'd gone too far. When I finally shut down my computer, one thought echoed in my mind. If she was bold enough to forge my signature, who else had she used? The paper trail the next morning. I woke up to find a notice taped to my front door. It was from the HOA. Notice of non-compliance, unauthorized lawn modifications. Fine. $150 due, immediately. I stared at the paper, baffled. I hadn't touched my lawn in weeks. Karen's petty retaliation had started already. That much was obvious. But instead of reacting, I smiled grimly. If she wanted to play games, I'd play chess. By 9 a.m., I was back at First Pine Bank, armed with a folder of my documents and a growing sense of determination. Amanda greeted me at the front desk, a sympathetic expression on her face. We've started the fraud file, she said, handing me a form. We'll need a copy of your ID and signature samples for verification. Once it's filed, the fraud department will contact you directly. I filled everything out carefully, adding my own notes about Karen and the HOA board. When I finished, Amanda leaned in slightly. Between you and me, she said quietly, we've had other homeowners come in with weird HOA-related issues. Not as bad as this, but suspicious, I raised an eyebrow. Suspicious how? She lowered her voice. Fees paid to strange accounts. Duplicate authorizations. The president, Karen, right? Always handles everything personally. That confirmed what I already suspected. I spent the rest of the day calling neighbors discreetly. Most brushed me off politely. No one wanted to cross Karen. But by late afternoon, one neighbor finally agreed to talk. It was Mark Thompson, who lived 2 streets over. He was a retired accountant, quiet but observant. When I arrived, he opened the door with a cautious look. You said this is about the HOA. Yes. Did you know there's a $120,000 loan taken under the community's name? Mark frowned. Loan? No, but I saw something strange a few months ago. Karen asked me to review some numbers for a beautification project. When I requested the full ledger, she said the data was confidential. That's when I stopped volunteering. Do you still have the emails? I asked. He nodded and went to his office. Minutes later, he returned with printed copies, correspondence between him and Karen, discussing budgets and private board matters, and then one line caught my attention. Don't worry about Robert's signature. I'll handle it personally. There it was, evidence. A trace of her arrogance in writing, Mark, I said slowly. This might help me prove forgery. He nodded. Be careful. Karen's got friends on the board and in the town council. She doesn't like being questioned. That evening, I attended the HOA's monthly board meeting. The community hall was filled with the usual suspects. Retirees clutching complaint forms, new families hoping to stay invisible, and Karen at the front with her polished smile and neatly arranged paperwork. When she spotted me, her expression stiffened for just a second before she recovered. Ah, Robert, so good of you to join us. Let's get started, shall we? She went through the agenda. Landscaping, neighborhood watch, community improvements, everything except the loan. When she opened the floor for questions, I stood up. I'd like to ask about the $120,000 loan the HOA took out this year, I said loudly. The room fell silent. Karen's smile didn't waver, but her voice sharpened. That's not an appropriate topic for this meeting. It's already been approved. Approved by who? Because I never saw a vote, and I certainly didn't sign anything. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Karen straightened. Robert, if you have concerns, please submit them in writing. Public accusations violate HOA policy. I've already filed a fraud report with the bank, I said evenly. They'll be contacting you soon. Her smile faltered just slightly. That's a serious claim. It's a serious crime, I replied. A few heads turned. I could see people whispering. Karen quickly adjourned the meeting early, pretending it was a time management issue. The next day, my mailbox was stuffed with more fines. Improper trash bin placement, 50. Unauthorized fence color, 100. Aggressive conduct at HOA meeting, 200. Each one signed personally by Karen Peterson. It was laughable, but also terrifying. She was trying to bury me in bureaucracy, hoping I'd back off. But instead, I doubled down. I spent the next few nights compiling everything, bank documents, emails from Mark, meeting notices, and even Karen's text messages from the HOA group chat. I highlighted every inconsistency, every missing vote, every signature, and then I noticed something chilling. The board approval form, attached to the loan, had 5 signatures: Karen, the treasurer, the secretary, and 2 others. But according to last month's minutes, 2 of those members had resigned before the loan date, which meant their signatures were forged. 2. On Friday, I received a call from a private number. Mr. Daniels? Yes, this is Detective Morrison, County Fraud Division. We received your complaint from First Pine Bank. Can you come down tomorrow to give a statement? My heart leapt. Absolutely. We'll need copies of all HOA communications and any board correspondence. Bring everything. I've got plenty, I said grimly. As I hung up, I glanced out the window again. Across the street, Karen was once again tending her roses. Her perfect world, her perfect smile, all built on lies. But this time, she looked up and met my eyes, and for the first time since this began, she didn't smile. Whispers in the neighborhood by the following week. Word had spread like wildfire through Willow Creek Estates. At first, it was just whispers, soft, hesitant questions exchanged over mailboxes and morning jogs. Then the tone shifted. People stopped waving. Conversations died when I approached. Karen had made her move. The first sign came from my next-door neighbor, Ellen, a woman who once brought me cookies every Christmas. That morning she was pruning her azaleas when I greeted her. She barely looked up. "Morning? Everything all right?" I asked. "I'd rather not get involved," she muttered, eyes fixed on the hedge. "Involved in what?" She hesitated, then sighed. "Karen said you're suing the HOA, and that if it goes through, all our dues will go up. People are worried, Robert." I exhaled slowly. "That's not true. I'm not suing the HOA. I filed a fraud report because Karen forged my signature on a loan," Ellen frowned. "She said you approved the project, then changed your story when it went bad. There it was. The rumor Karen had planted." "Ellen, please," I said gently. "You've known me for years. Do you really think I'd lie about this?" She hesitated again, then shook her head softly. "I don't know anymore, Robert. Everything's gotten so messy." And with that, she turned away. That night, my phone buzzed. It was Mark Thompson again. "Robert," he said, his voice low, "I've been hearing some chatter. Karen's telling people you're under investigation for financial misconduct. She's saying you tried to steal HOA funds." I nearly dropped the phone. "That's insane." "I know," Mark replied, "but it's working. People are scared. They think you're trying to bring the whole HOA down." I rubbed my temples. "She's desperate. The detective's building a case. She must know the walls are closing in." Mark paused. "You need to be careful. She's not just spreading rumors. She's rewriting the narrative. Check the HOA website." When I logged on, my stomach dropped. Karen had posted a community transparency update, claiming that certain residents have made false accusations against the board, causing unnecessary stress and potential legal fees for the neighborhood. There was no name, but everyone knew who she meant. The post ended with, "We must protect our community from individuals who seek personal gain at the expense of harmony." That was the final straw. I met with Detective Morrison the next morning at the police station. He was a tall man with a calm, firm voice. "We've reviewed the documents," he said, flipping through his file. "There's clear evidence of forgery. The signatures don't match your handwriting, and the notary stamp on the loan documents is fake." "Fake?" I repeated. "Yes, the notary listed retired 3 years ago. Someone used her old stamp." "Karen," I said immediately, "most likely. But we'll need to subpoena her financial records and HOA meeting notes to confirm intent." He paused. "In the meantime, I suggest you keep things quiet. She's already trying to undermine your credibility." I almost laughed. Too late for that. When I returned home, a small group had gathered on the sidewalk near my house. 3 neighbors whispering loudly enough for me to hear. "That's him," one woman said. "The one trying to ruin everything. Karen says he's bitter about losing the election last year," another added. I clenched my jaw. I'd never run for HOA office. Another one of her lies. Then, later that afternoon, I found a letter slipped under my door. "Cease your defamation of the Willow Creek HOA and its members. Further false claims may result in legal action. Try legal counsel." There was no law firm header, just the HOA logo. A bluff, but one meant to intimidate. That night I received a message from a private number. "You don't know what you're doing. Stop before you make this worse." No name, no signature. But I didn't need one. Karen had officially crossed from manipulation to threats. I forwarded the message to Detective Morrison, who replied within minutes. "Keep documenting everything. We're close." Days turned into weeks, and the tension in the neighborhood grew unbearable. The community Facebook group exploded with debates. Half the residents calling for Karen's resignation, the other half defending her as a pillar of integrity. One evening, I was taking out the trash when a car slowed beside me. It was Lisa, the woman who had once laughed at Karen's jokes during the first confrontation. She rolled down her window. "Robert," she said softly, "I think you're right." I turned to her, surprised. "What changed your mind?" She hesitated, then handed me a flash drive. "Karen told me to delete this after the last board meeting. It's the security recording from the community hall. You might want to watch it." She drove off before I could thank her. Inside, I plugged in the flash drive. The file opened to a video time-stamped 3 months ago. The supposed meeting where the board approved the loan. There was Karen sitting at the head of the table, but the seats around her were empty. She signed every document herself, pausing only to adjust her glasses and look directly into the camera. My hands shook as I paused the video. She hadn't just forged my name, she'd forged everyone's. The next morning, I called Detective Morrison. "She recorded herself doing it," I said breathlessly. "I have proof." There was silence on the other end. "Then, bring it in. This changes everything." As I ended the call, I looked out my window. Karen was standing at her mailbox, pretending to check letters, her gaze fixed on my house. But this time, when our eyes met, I didn't look away, because for the first time, I knew she'd finally lost control. Breaking the silence the following Monday, I walked into the county fraud division with the flash drive clutched in my hand like it was made of glass. Detective Morrison met me in the lobby, calm as ever. I handed him the drive and the printout of Karen's forged notices. He nodded, expression tightening as he reviewed them. "This is exactly what we needed," he said. "We'll have a warrant for her office and computer by tomorrow morning." I exhaled slowly. Weeks of gaslighting, threats, and isolation. Finally, the tide was turning, but in Willow Creek, news never stayed quiet for long. By evening, someone had leaked that the HOA president was under investigation. Rumors exploded like fireworks across the neighborhood's private Facebook group. Half the comments defended Karen, calling her a victim of jealousy, a community hero. The other half demanded her resignation, demanding transparency about HOA funds. Karen, "Of course," responded swiftly. She posted a long, indignant message. "I am deeply hurt by these baseless accusations. Our HOA has always acted in good faith. Unfortunately, certain individuals are spreading lies to damage our unity. I will cooperate fully with authorities to clear my name." Her post racked up dozens of likes within minutes. People wanted to believe her. She'd been their queen for years, but not everyone. A few brave residents, including Mark and Lisa, commented beneath her post, hinting that they'd seen enough to know better. And for the first time, Karen didn't reply. The next morning, 2 unmarked cars pulled into Willow Creek Estates. I watched from my living room window as detectives approached the HOA office, a small, converted unit beside the clubhouse. Karen stood outside, perfectly composed, her hair immaculate as always. But when the officers presented the warrant, I saw it, the first flicker of panic behind her smile. Neighbors gathered quietly in clusters, pretending to walk their dogs or check mailboxes while watching everything unfold. The detectives spent hours inside, emerging with boxes of files, hard drives, and Karen's personal laptop. That night, the entire neighborhood buzzed, and when the local news station ran a short segment, HOA president under investigation for forgery and misappropriation of funds, the illusion shattered completely. Karen's empire of control, built on fear and manipulation, began to crumble. The next HOA meeting was the most crowded in years. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with accusation and shame. Karen arrived late, face pale, clutching a stack of papers. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked halfway through her introduction. "As you all know," she began shakily, "certain documents have been taken out of context." "These allegations, enough!" someone shouted from the back. "It was Mark. We've seen the video. You signed everything yourself." The room erupted in murmurs and shouts. Karen tried to raise her voice. "That video was doctored by who?" I said, stepping forward. "You were the only one in the room." Her eyes found mine, cold and venomous. "You think you've won, Robert. You've destroyed this community." "No," I said evenly. "You did that the moment you decided you were above everyone else." Someone began filming on their phone. Others nodded in agreement. The crowd's loyalty shifted right before her eyes. For the first time, Karen had no control left to wield. She stormed out midway through the meeting, leaving her papers scattered across the table. Among them, we found invoices for consulting fees paid to an account under her maiden name. Thousands of dollars in HOA funds had disappeared. Within days, the county district attorney filed formal charges: forgery, fraudulent financial representation, misappropriation of community funds. Karen was arrested quietly at dawn. I didn't see it happen, but the news spread within minutes. Some neighbors were shocked, others relieved. Lisa came by that morning with coffee and a small smile. "You did it," she said softly. I shook my head. "No, we did it. You, Mark, everyone who spoke up." She hesitated. "People are already talking about new leadership. They want you to run for HOA president." I laughed, half in disbelief. "After all this? I'd rather live under a real government," she smiled. "Then maybe you're exactly what this place needs." Weeks passed. The detectives continued digging, uncovering even more. Karen had inflated repair budgets, created fake invoices, and used HOA funds to pay her personal credit card. The community was in chaos, meetings filled with angry homeowners demanding refunds and audits. But amid the noise, something new started to bloom: honesty. Without Karen's control, people began talking to each other again, helping each other. Ellen, the neighbor who once avoided me, came over one evening with a homemade pie and an apology. "I should have believed you," she said, eyes downcast. "We were all so afraid of her." "It's over now," I said. "That's what matters." The night before Karen's court hearing, I stood outside on my porch. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after a long storm finally passes. Across the street, the roses she'd planted were beginning to wilt. No one had tended them since she'd been taken away. For the first time in months, I felt peace. But there was one more thing to do: make sure this never happened again. The next morning, I drafted a proposal: the Willow Creek Accountability Act, a simple set of bylaws that required transparency, member votes on financial decisions, and rotating board positions. When I brought it to the next meeting, it passed unanimously, and as I looked around the room, at the same neighbors who once doubted me, I realized something profound. Karen's downfall hadn't just saved me, it had saved Willow Creek. Just as an aftermath, the courthouse smelled faintly of old wood polish and tension. Reporters gathered near the steps, cameras ready. Inside, a crowd of Willow Creek residents filled the benches. Neighbors who once avoided my eyes now sitting beside me in silent support. Karen entered in a grey suit instead of her trademark floral dresses. She looked smaller somehow, the confident tilt of her chin replaced by a nervous flicker. Her once perfect hair was pulled back too tight, her face pale and drawn. The trial began with quiet formality. The prosecutor outlined the charges: forgery of legal documents, fraudulent acquisition of loan funds, misappropriation of community assets, obstruction of an ongoing investigation each. Words struck like a hammer. When they played the recording, the video of Karen signing every document herself, there was a collective gasp in the room. Karen's lawyer tried to spin it. My client acted under the belief she was authorized to sign on behalf of the community for its improvement. But the prosecutor countered sharply. There was no authorization. There was deception, deliberate and calculated. She forged signatures, lied to a bank, and defrauded her neighbors. Then came the bank records, the fake invoices, the messages to other board members. It was a mountain of evidence she couldn't climb. When the judge finally spoke, the courtroom fell silent. Mrs. Peterson, this community trusted you. You exploited that trust for personal gain and attempted to conceal your actions through intimidation. You will serve 3 years in state custody and pay restitution to the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Gasps filled the air. Karen sat motionless, her mouth trembling, eyes blank. I expected to feel triumph, vindication, maybe even satisfaction. But instead, all I felt was relief, a deep, quiet kind that sank into my bones. This was never about revenge. It was about truth. As officers led her away, Karen turned her head slightly, just enough for our eyes to meet. For the briefest moment, she looked like she might say something, an apology maybe. But she didn't, and then she was gone. Life in Willow Creek began to heal slowly. The new HOA board, now led by Mark as interim president, held open meetings for the first time in years. Financial reports were posted online. Votes were public and fair. For once, people smiled when they passed each other. Kids played in the streets again without whispers about what's going on with the HOA. One afternoon, as I sat on my porch, Lisa stopped by. "They're naming you in the newsletter," she said with a grin. "Calling you the man who saved Willow Creek," I laughed. "Please tell them not to. I just wanted my name off a fake loan." "Maybe," she said, "but you gave everyone their voices back." Later that week, I visited the HOA office, now repainted, cleaned, and oddly peaceful, without Karen's floral perfume lingering in the air. On the wall hung a new framed quote, "Accountability is not punishment, it's protection." Below it was a photo of the community, smiling together during the first neighborhood cleanup day after the scandal. I hadn't realized someone had taken it. It hit me then. How much we'd all changed. Fear had been replaced by unity, suspicion by understanding. Karen's control had forced us into silence. Her downfall had taught us to speak. A few months later, I received a call from Detective Morrison. "Just wanted to let you know," he said. "Restitution payments are being processed. You should see your share soon." "I appreciate that," I said. "You ever deal with a case like this before?" He chuckled softly. "Plenty of HOA cases. Not many with video evidence that neat, though." "You handled yourself well, Daniels." "Thanks, Detective." When I hung up, I looked out over my yard, the same one Karen had once fined me for. The grass shimmered in the afternoon sun, perfectly ordinary and perfectly mine. A few weeks later, the community held a block party, the first in years. Tables lined the street, kids ran between sprinklers, and someone even hired a local band. It felt normal again. Ellen approached me, holding a plate of barbecue. "You know," she said, smiling shyly, "Karen used to hate these. Said they made the street look tacky." I grinned. "Guess that's why it feels so good." As the sun dipped low, laughter echoed down the street. And for the first time since that awful phone call months ago, I realized how close we'd come to losing this. Our sense of community, of trust, of belonging, but we'd fought back. That night, I sat down to write the last entry in my notes, the same file I'd started the day everything began. Final entry, Willow Creek HOA fraud case. Karen Peterson convicted of forgery and fraud. Community funds restored. New bylaws enacted. Trust rebuilt. Lessons learned. Evil doesn't always come with a gun or a mask. Sometimes it comes with a clipboard and a smile. I saved the document and leaned back, listening to the quiet hum of my neighborhood. The sound of normal life returning. For months, Karen's shadow had ruled over Willow Creek, but now the light had come back, and this time it wasn't from her perfect roses or spotless sidewalks. It came from the people who finally learned to stand together.